Welcome back everyone to another video, and welcome to my first game review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Sonic fan game called Sonic Omens, developed by Ouroboros Studio. Is it any good? Well, we'll see about that. But before that, I'd like to mention that I won't be able to showcase any of the audio of the game in this video. That is because for some reason, no matter what program I use to record, the gameplay will record but the audio won't. I've literally tried everything. Every other game works fine when recording, but this one doesn't for some reason. I even recorded a full let's play of the game only just to find out that the audio didn't even record this entire time. And I'm sure you could expect I was incredibly annoyed about that. So yeah, just a heads up for when I talk about stuff relating to sound. Okay, so let's start with the story. According to the download page, this game is a direct sequel to Sonic Unleashed. In this game, they set out to explain why Sonic doesn't use the Chaos Emeralds anymore. All the cutscenes are fully and well voice acted. However, Shadow does have a strange accent, which isn't a bad thing, it just kinda threw me off at first. I don't know where the VA for Shadow is from, but he did a great job nevertheless. All the cutscenes are shot beautifully, and makes it feel very cinematic. However, there are a few problems I do have with them. Firstly, all the cutscenes are locked at 30 FPS. Although there was this one cutscene where during the middle of it, the frame rate uncapped itself and it made everything look so much smoother for a short period of time. I can tell all these cutscenes are in-engine and know they could easily uncap the frame rate to give it a more smoother look. Due to it being in-engine, there are a few graphical bugs, like here where Sonic's eyes are kinda freaking out, and the textures here spazzing out as well. This game supports subtitles, however they don't work all that well. A character will be speaking, and before they stop, the subtitle disappears, which can be very annoying. Hopefully they can fix this in a later version of the game. One last thing about cutscenes is that there's noticeable screen tearing in some of the cutscenes. This is probably due to me having VSync disabled, and I'm not sure if I enable it, it will go away. I have a feeling that the tearing happens because of the 30 FPS cap. Let's talk about graphics and performance. This game is beautiful, each location feels unique, although some can be a little uninspired, but most are inspired and are a blast to go through. However, the least inspired ones all make up for it in level design and gameplay, what we'll get to later. Everything about this game looks great, even the character models look amazing. But how does it all perform? Well, on max settings on my RTX 3070 and my Ryzen 5 5600 processor, the game runs very smoothly, oftentimes exceeding my monitor's 144Hz refresh rate. However, it's not perfect. There's still optimization to be had since I occasionally do get stutters. It should also be noted that this game is more GPU dependent rather than CPU dependent, so to run this game you might need a mid to high end graphics card. One thing I would like to see is a setting to disable motion blur. I get that it's meant to give off a more cinematic effect, but for people like me it would be nice if we could disable it. But there is one way you can get rid of motion blur, and that is to turn off post FX. This disables motion blur but at the cost of losing some graphical fidelity, so throughout my playthrough I left it on. There might be a way to disable motion blur if you dig into the game files and change the config, but I shouldn't have to go through the extra work to do that. I also would like to imagine how cool this game would be if it had ray tracing support. I don't know if the developer could add that in or not, but if it's possible, it would be a cool feature. I should also clarify why I had VSync disabled. Well, having it enabled kept the frame rate at 60 FPS, so that's why. Now let's get talking about gameplay. But before that, I'd like to quickly mention the Sonic Forces inspired HUD. I can't say I'm really a fan. It's more of an improved Sonic Forces HUD, but I'd personally like it to be a bit more unique. During gameplay, Sonic retains all his moves from previous and even future games. We also get to see some new ones as well. We have the classic spin dash, a double jump, Sonic's charge up homing ability, which I never use since it's useless, bounce bracelet, stomp, slide, ring dash, boost, sweep kick, side dash, and even the ability to swing from places with Chip's bracelet thingy. It kinda reminds me of Sonic Boom. As for Shadow, he retains all of Sonic's basic moveset, but he's not just a reskinned Sonic. He has unique abilities such as Chaos Control, which slows down the world around you, Chaos Spear, which is a ranged attack, Chaos Blast, which destroys all enemies in a certain vicinity, and Chaos Dash, which I found to be useless and I didn't understand what it could be used for. A nice piece of attention to detail is with Chaos Control. The timer slows down when you use it, which I think is really cool. There is also a flying stage where you can control either Tails or Shadow, however nothing changes other than cosmetics. In these gliders you have two attacks, normal bullets and rockets. The ammo refills when you let them cool down. I also really like if you use the bullets for too long, they'll get slower and slower. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about level design. Each level is very well crafted, with numerous branching pathways to take around every corner. No matter what, you have a choice in which way you want to go, since the levels are very open, even when they're linear. Yes, I know that sounded confusing, but trust me, you'll know when you play it. I always got a sense of freedom when playing, and each level was a blast to go through. Even knowing I did get lost a few times, but that was mainly because of how dumb I am, or I just wasn't paying attention. There are also hints scattered around the level just in case you didn't know what to do. But me being dumb, I never really used them that much. There's also something that blew me away when I first saw it, and that is, if you fall underwater, you won't instantly die. You have full freedom to explore beneath there, even if the surface of the water looks like a death pit. However, in the swamp level with Shadow, the water looks like you could run across it, but you can't. If you touch it, you die. So I don't really know why that is, it's kind of misleading. Also, that flying level I mentioned earlier is hell. Due to how wobbly the glider is, it's tough to navigate. Like, there's this one section in that level where you go into a cave and there's all this wind, and I just kept dying and dying over and over due to how the wind kept throwing me off to where I needed to go. But during normal gameplay, Sonic and Shadow control very tightly and it's a great time. Overall, all the levels are great, and some require some puzzle solving as well. One of the most coolest is where you're running down from this tree and you gotta avoid all this water, and if you don't get to the bottom fast enough, then you're as good as dead. There's also a level where you gotta climb up that humongous tree I just mentioned, and if you fall, then you're back down to where you started. However, if you hit a checkpoint, you could press pause and pick the KYS option, which will do as the name implies and reset your position to the last checkpoint. In these levels you can also find red rings, which I don't know if they have that much of a purpose. Maybe if you collect all of them you can play as Super Sonic. I should also mention you can get normal shields, bubble shields and probably others to aid you during gameplay. Also, in the first level where Tails is talking to you and casually calls you fat, if you run too far away from him whilst he's talking, his voice will seamlessly transition into a radio version of him speaking to you. Again, I wish I could show you that no matter what I can get the audio to record. One last thing I would like to mention for level design is that in a mission primarily made for Shadow, for example, if you wanted to play as Sonic in that level, and since Sonic does not possess all of Shadow's abilities, there'll be a thing you can use, Chip's bracelet, to swing across to where you gotta go. I really like this attention to detail. Before we move on to music, I'd like to quickly discuss the controls. To boost, you for some reason have to press the right trigger instead of the traditional X or square button. I kinda like this, but I also kinda hate it. Because when, for example, you need to quickly slide under something, my brain instantly thinks that I need to press the left trigger instead of B, so I'm always running into things. Other than that, the controls are mapped excellently. It also has great keyboard controls as well. Now let's quickly discuss music. Music taste is entirely subjective, but I gotta say the soundtrack was pretty forgettable. It wasn't bad, but it sounded more like a soundtrack you would hear in a movie rather than a game. It had some good tracks, but yeah, that was about it. I mean, it sounded good, but yeah. There was one level where they reused the Biolizard theme remix from Sonic Force's episode Shadow, which I don't really know why they did this. Now let's talk about animations. I think all the animations in this game are excellent, and Sonic has some nice idle animations as well, but for some reason Shadow lacks them. Maybe they could add that in a future patch, I don't know. There's also the sick freefall / skydiving animation, which is absolutely eye candy for me. I also really like if you are boosting and press the slide button, Sonic or Shadow will go into a ball, and it reminds me of Sonic Unleashed's intro cutscene. But before we move on to bugs, I would like to quickly talk about the bosses. There are currently, I think, 3 bosses in the game as of now. and all are pretty solid, but unfortunately it's kind of hard to tell when they're gonna perform the next attack, so I ended up getting hit quite a bit, and even dying quite a bit as well. One thing I don't like is how tanky they are. Seriously, look at how long it took me to beat the first boss of the game. Other than that, the bosses are pretty decent. Now let's talk about bugs. Oh boy, are there lots. Some of these bugs consisted of enemies not spawning, or even made me have to restart the entire game just to fix some of them. To name a couple, in the swamp level with Shadow, there's this room what was meant to open, but for some reason it didn't and was stuck. I tried everything only to find out that when I restarted the level, everything was working. Shadow mentioned before that he had to solve a riddle, and I thought this was one of them. I also got this bug where if I was in chaos control and restarted a level, the rest of the game would be in slow motion. Even exiting the level and going back to the title screen didn't even help. However, on the bright side, I got to notice there was a nice change to the title screen where it now shows Shadow instead of before. Very nice attention to detail. Overall, this game was awesome and a blast to go through. It's everything a Sonic game should be by combining all the best things about past Sonic games and cramming that all into one. It's also pretty challenging for a Sonic game, which in my opinion is a good thing. Enemies actually do things instead of just standing there like Sonic forces. Sonic Omens gets my vintage score of an 8 out of 10. Once everything is ironed out and polished, this game has the potential to be a masterpiece. I also think this game is still in early access, since once completed, it shows there are still more episodes in the story which are locked, probably to come in a future version. Anyways, I put a lot of effort into this video and would highly appreciate it if you left a like. Also, go download the game and support the devs. And don't listen to the people on Twitter saying that the developers are somehow shady for having a Patreon. I mean, come on. It's completely optional. You don't have to pay to play the game. It's a free download. I suggest watching Dylan Thomas's videos on Sonic Omens. He basically exposes how dumb all this controversy is. But with all that said, I'll catch you guys in the next video, and I thank you for watching.